Hi, hello, and welcome to the Notebook Nook with me, Mera. This is a place to unwind and reflect on our day-to-day life, sprinkled with some bookish convos and, of course, some stories of my life. If that's something that sparks your interest, you're more than welcome to join the venture that I call the Notebook Nook. Hi, hello, this is Esmeralda Mimera, and welcome here to my podcast. So, today I actually had quite an interesting topic, and I know this topic can get, I would have to say, pretty broad, but I want to kind of center it in a little bit more because it's about blooming. Now, blooming can mean so many things, and I can probably do so many stories and so many reflections on just the word bloom. You know what I mean? And one of the things that really stood out to me, or at least I wanted to kind of think about and talk about, for some reason in the past couple of days, I've just been getting the word blooming in my head. And I don't know why it is, to be honest with you, whether it's me seeing a particular ad that talks about blooming, or I'm seeing flowers literally blooming. We are in spring now. And also, just, I don't know, something in my head just keeps saying blooming and blooming. And I can keep thinking about certain things in my life that I've realized have bloomed into something so beautiful. And that's actually what I wanted to kind of concentrate on today and talk about, because I'm like, you know what, there's a reason why it's going in my head and why I am constantly having this thought, of blooming. So there is a quote that I did want to bring in, and it says, "She blooms even when darkness engulfs her." And this is by Becca Lee. And it's, oh my gosh, such a reflection. At least I can definitely relate to it so much. And I'm pretty sure thousands of people out there that are probably listening to this podcast would probably relate to that particular quote as well. Sometimes while we are in the muck of it all, in the gunk, in the darkness of, I don't know where we're at in our mindset or our life, and just events are happening and things are just feeling so dark. And yeah, it seems like you can't quite catch a break at times. And once it passes, because it will, eventually it will pass, and you will reflect on it and you would think about those events or those situations or those things that had happened in your life. And when you look back at that, you're like, wow, I definitely didn't deserve that, or I don't feel that I was someone deserving of that particular situation, but I did learn something from it. It did make me a lot more stronger. And I do see things in a different perspective or a different light based off those events that went through in my life. And I know for me, there's so many things that definitely I can go back and, and definitely connect to the whole concept of blooming and just realizing how much you grow from things. But for now, I really wanted to talk about this particular seed that my son wanted to pretty much grow. He was eating his little Mickey D's, and this isn't sponsored or anything like that, but he was eating McDonald's, and he had these little apple slices that they give you. And he was eating it, and he saw there was a seed in there. He goes, "Mom," now this is his first time getting a seed in his apples. Usually you'll see a little bit of the core or sometimes some of the skin. Those things kind of happen during production and stuff. But so he looks at the seed and he looks at me, and this was about the end of was it the end of last year? Probably the middle of last year. So I was going through it. I'm not gonna lie. I was struggling mentally. But he saw this seed, and to him, he saw something so amazing. He's like, "Mom, this is a seed." And I was like, "Yes, that is a seed. It's an apple seed." "Mama, we can grow it?" And the first thing I thought was like, well, yeah, I guess we can. I started thinking about my fifth grade year. And during this year, I remember our teacher, and oh my gosh, she's like one of my favorite teachers that I've had of all time. And as a matter of fact, I still have her. I'm still connected with her through social media. And it's just so fun to see her now. And it's just like, wow, oh my gosh, like she friended me and I friended her. And now it's like, it's just a cool thing to see. But she was one of my favorite teachers, and she actually taught us how to grow a plant out of a seed. And literally, just grabbing this napkin, wetting it with water, putting it in the Ziploc bag, and then putting the seed on it until it sprouts. And make sure to keep it with ventilated, and also like every once in a while letting air in and also keeping it by the sun, right? And I started to think, I was like, you know what, Ricky, I think we can do it, right? At this point, you guys, if you guys only knew, I didn't have energy to do much of anything. I was so depressed. I was going through it, you guys. I really was. And I couldn't find the energy to really make myself do things, And I don't know, just something about seeing his excitement about growing a seed and me knowing I had the knowledge to grow a seed and I knew how. I put myself to the test. I said, you know what? We're going to grow a seed. Now, keep in mind, I am not a big green thumb kind of gal. Now, I do have to admit, I have killed various plants in my lifetime, even succulents that were supposedly said that, you can't possibly kill them, or even air plants. You can't possibly kill those neither. Well, let me just say that this gal right here is definitely a plant killer at times, though I have improved in it. And actually, when I really, really, really started improving it, was actually when I started to grow this particular seed with my son. And I knew it was going to be an apple tree, of course. It came from an apple. And I know that, eventually when it gets bigger, it needs to get pollinated by little bees and everything. But meanwhile, I was like, well, let's just see if it makes it to that point, right? So I ended up getting the seed. I prepped it. I showed it to him and he wanted to take part in it. And I just found how intrigued he was. And it really reminded me back when I was in 5th grade and how intrigued I was when I was growing my first seed and just waiting for it to bloom and sprout, just to see it grow. And so I'm looking at my son who's definitely growing and he's changing and evolving and just becoming his own little person, right? He's kind of a form of a seed. And if you think about it, him in my belly when he first was conceived, it was like this little seed, right? And it just started to grow and grow and grow. And eventually I gave birth to him. And even then, he started growing. He started learning to walk. He started to do things on his own. He started to talk and becoming kind of more independent. Well, this little seed started to sprout. And my son was excited. I mean, he was just elated, just so happy to finally be able to see the seed grow. And it was, you guys, I was impressed. And finally, I told him, well, once it has a good sprout on it, we're going to be able to put it in soil. So, of course, I grabbed one of my plants or one of my planters that I had that eventually there was a dead plant in there and I ended up killing it, of course. And I've rinsed it and cleaned out the whole unit and stuff like that. So I decided to reuse it. And I remember I still had some potting soil and I was like, you know what? All right, I think it's ready for some planting. So I ended up getting everything together and pretty much he helped me, and we were both putting the seed into the soil. And I told him, I said, we got to give it lots of love. We got to talk to it so good. And the reason why I was telling him that we really need to bring out our energies to it and talk good to the plant and tell it how much we love it and keep growing, you're doing good, is because scientifically it has been proven. There's been various tests out there. You guys can definitely Google or check it out. But there has been so many tests and research done on how plants are actually affected by emotion. And one of the actual scientists, or little scientists, I would like to say, in school, when you have to do your little science experiment. Well, my sister, she actually had a science experiment and she decided to get 3 plants. And she decided one of them, she was going to talk really mean to it. The other one, she was going to ignore. She was just going to give it as traditional water and soil, and that was it. And the third one, she was going to love it. She was going to adore it. She was going to give it music, everything, just loving it to the max. And she had a whole month of doing the science project. And let me tell you that by the end of her science project, even I became a believer, because there was moments where I would see her like, she's kind of crazy. She's out there screaming at her plant, saying how ugly the plant is. Well, the plant that she was talking so bad to was all shriveled up, wasn't even wanting to grow. It just looked so disheveled. It looked really, really bad. And then the one that she was just giving water and the water in the sun was growing normally. Wasn't anything spectacular, but it was growing. Oh, but the one that she was singing to it and she was talking to it and she was giving all these praises to looked so amazing. I mean, it was blooming, it was growing, and I was amazed by it. I was like, wow, I think they do have feelings, And I do like to say that plants and living life and everything, we all have feelings, we all have sensations. And I just want to say, so with this, when I started to see this plant growing in this pot with my son, and he started seeing it grow, and it grew about an inch. Oh my gosh, he was like, Mom, look how beautiful it looks. And I looked at it, I was like, gosh, look at it. Look at your gorgeous leaves. You look so amazing. And for some reason, I felt that I was just giving off these good energy to this plant. And in return, I was feeling really good just seeing it grow. And it was putting me in really good spirits because I realized I was like, oh, shoot. This plant grew an inch and I haven't killed it yet. Oh my gosh. Now keep in mind, my son was on top of it. So he would go and feel the soil and be like, Mom, I think it's getting too dry. And I said, okay, let's add a little bit of water and and so forth. So we would go back and forth, constantly checking on it. Well, right now, I don't even know how tall it is, you guys, but it is well over 2 feet tall, probably 3 feet tall now. It's so, so tall. I am just like, wow, we're going to have to plant it outside. That's for sure. But just looking at that plant, I would have to say that is one of my most proudest plants. Just looking at that plant gives me just, oh my gosh, a rush of emotion. Because in the most darkest of times, I had no energy. I really genuinely did not have any energy to even entertain the idea of making the seed. But something about the excitement of my son wanting to plant this seed and me knowing that I had the knowledge and the ability to do so and help him, pretty much, to attain this dream that he's having about making this apple tree. And I decided to go on ahead and do it. And just that little effort that I took. And then moments after that, I got curious as to, I wonder how big I can get it to grow. And just knowing that I was giving that love and attention to this plant, it was like not only blooming in itself, but I felt like something within me was also blooming. And not to say that there was, at the end of the year, very heartache. There were so many setbacks that I had in my mental health. But something about seeing this plant growing and just realizing every time that my son would be like, oh my gosh, it got even bigger. And I would look, and sure enough, it had 3 extra big leaves and extra stalk. It's just, I was like, wow, like it would make me happy. It would make me curious to want to see more in this plant. And I realized that slowly but surely, not only was this plant blooming, but I was blooming inside. My son was blooming as well. I felt like my surrounding area just felt like it was growing and growing and growing. And so I do want to tell you guys that I understand life can be very, very difficult. And believe me, I can probably relate. I think everybody has probably gone through some very tough moments of their life where they thought that was it. They couldn't handle it. Like it was so tough for them, or they were trying to figure out, how do I get out of this, right? But at the end of the day, when things calm down, because the storm comes, it always does, but then it calms down. And when it does, and you reflect on those moments and those things, yes, there still may be painful, but you do reflect on it and you grow from it and you realize, wow, I am evolving. I am changing the way that I think. My perspective is now starting to be very, very different. Maybe it's a little bit more grateful. Maybe it's showing a little bit more kindness that you didn't even think you had. It could be that you are now feeling more courageous in doing more adventures or going out more. It could be too to have more confidence in yourself, love yourself, doing a lot of self-love and all of that. Like this is all forms of blooming, forms of growing. And that is something to really, really reflect on and really to think about, that even the smallest little seed that could have been thrown away and not even cared about, could have been somewhere in a landfill, instead ended up in a little pot right now, and now actually a larger pot, and actually growing more than 3 feet tall. And just knowing that something so minute became something so big just by giving it a little bit of love and attention. And that is something that we need to give ourselves. It is not selfish to give ourselves love and attention every once in a while. Like that is something that we should do. We need to nurture ourselves, our soul, our mind, our body, so that we can grow and we can become much better people. We can start seeing things a little bit more different and start seeing more of the light in this world, because it's very difficult, especially when You look at the news or you look in social media, and sometimes things are a little bit dark and they're a little bit hazy. And it's very difficult to want to bloom in some dark areas. But let me tell you, even in the darkness, things do bloom, things do thrive and grow. And just know that we're all going to eventually evolve in one way or another. So, yeah, that's something that I really wanted to reflect on today. And I know it's not much, and it's just something that's been in my head all this time. And I just keep thinking about it and thinking about it. I'm like, oh, you know what? I think I am going to talk about it because it's in my mind and I want to kind of let it out. And like I said, I want this podcast to definitely be more of a journal entry. So this is kind of one of those thoughts that I have that I wish I could write down, but instead I'm doing it here and I'm really enjoying it more in a verbal kind of sense. So I hope you guys actually enjoyed this podcast. If you guys did, don't forget to share this podcast. And yeah, so until next time, you guys, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day and take care of yourself, stay safe. And until next time, you guys, bye.